So welcome again. This is going to be statistics 14. We're going to work on variation a little bit more, mostly the standard deviation. I'm going to do a couple of example problems to help you with the problems that you have to do. Okay, next slide this one's blank, but next one will show you some problem stuff and we'll work on it. So the data I'm going to use for the first problem, and this mimics problems 19 through 22, where what you want to find is you want to compare the two data sets and then interpret the results. So what I have are salaries of teachers in the thousands of dollars. So when you see a number like 39, it means 39,000. And I'm comparing and talking about public and private school teacher salaries. So in order to do the comparison, I want to find first of all, I want to find the range, the variance, the mean, and the standard deviation for this sample of teacher salaries. I am going to use my calculator to do all those, and I suggest you use a TI-84 as well to check these values. So what you see here are the numbers listed. I used a TI-84 calculator to find everything, but the range is going to be the maximum public minus the minimum public, and that's 5, which represents a $5,000 range in salaries, and on the private school salaries it's 22 minus 18, which has a $4,000 range. I did not calculate the variance squared. Give me just a sec. This is actually 3.13. And the variance is 2.28 for the private school teachers. And so when you calculate the variance, I'm basically taking the standard deviation from the calculator and I'm squaring those values, and that gives me the variance. Now the units on the variance are squared dollars, so it doesn't really make sense in this case. And the reality is, in this case, I'm not really going to use that for any comparison purposes. The average amount of money that is made is $37,500 for public school and $19,500 for private. Standard deviation is 1.77 for public, 1.51 for private. Those have exactly the same units, so thousands of dollars. So what I could say is the public school range in salaries is larger than the private school range, but that the minimums and maximums in the private school are much lower than the public school, approximately half. I could say that the mean's approximately half. And finally, in terms of standard deviations, I could say that private schools' salaries tend to be approximately $1,510 away from the mean on average, whereas public school salaries tend to be about $1,770 away from the mean on either side. And that's all you would do in terms of your interpretation. So I hope this helps and shows you what you have to do on those problems. And hopefully the verbal explanation helps in terms of interpretation. So what I have here is an example of how the empirical rule works in a problem. So first of all, we're going to talk about land value for a farm, and the mean land value of some sample of farms is, say, $2,400 per acre, and the standard deviation for the land value of those farms is $450 per acre. And so it says, between what two values does 95% of the farm values lie? Now, that's an important question, because when it says 95%, that tells me it's within 2 standard deviations of the mean. All right? So that means I want to have the mean plus 2 standard deviations and the mean minus 2 standard deviations. And then I know that's going to contain 95% of the data. And so all I need to do then is the mean is 2400, and I add 2 times 450, and that's basically 3300. And I take 2400 and subtract 2 times 450, which is 900. So 2400 minus 900 is 1500. And so, between what 2 values does 95% of the farm values per acre lie? Well, between $1,500 per acre and $3,300 per acre. So that's one of the questions that you want to use. Next question is, it says estimate the number of farms out of 40 farms whose value is between $1,500 and $3,300. Well, out of 40 farms, between $1,500 and $3,300, we just figured out that that's 95% of all farms. So all I need to do is take 95% of the 40 farms, which is 0.95 times 40, and when I multiply that out, I get 38 farms. So I now know that 38 out of the 40 farms have that value. And so this is a typical empirical rule problem. What I have for you here is a histogram, and this histogram has as the midpoints 0, 1, 2, and 3. And so your midpoints could be decimals when you see in other problems. And sometimes you may only know the boundaries and you'll have to find the midpoints. Or sometimes it'll be a frequency table and you'll have to find the midpoints. But in any case, you always need the midpoints if you want to calculate a weighted mean or whatever from this. So what I would do is I would just go to my calculator, list 1, list 2, and I would enter 0, 1, 2, 3, those are my midpoints. Sorry about that, phone. And then I would enter the frequencies in list 2, just like we're finding a weighted mean. And I would proceed on my calculator then to go forward and press calc. So I'm going to do this right now, and why don't you do it as well and then come back and let's see the result. So the way I did this is I'd take my lists and then I'd go to Stat, Calculate, One Variable Statistics on my calculator, and by going to One Variable Statistics, then I would enter list 1, comma, list 2, and press enter, and what it returns, what I'm supposed to find in the problem, is what's the mean of this histogram of data and what's the standard deviation, and these are the answers you would get for that. All it's doing is finding a weighted mean and a weighted standard deviation. So mean and standard deviation. And the reason we need to be able to do that is most data comes in these sort of list forms or histogram forms, and so we want to be able to do with them. deal with them. And that's basically the last kind of problem that you'll have to do. Okay, I hope this helps you to do the rest of the problems on the homework, and we'll talk to you later. Okay, bye.